Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Weigh In podcast. This is going to be my first upload, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube or anything. Welcome. I'm so excited to have all of you here, if anybody's here. Um, this is something new for me. Starting a podcast like this, I've never done any kind of media channel before, any kind of media outlet like this. Something that people have been asking me to do for a long time or saying that I should do. With as much as I love MMA and the UFC and really just sports in general, I've always been a big sports fan. But in particular, MMA and the UFC have been a real big focus for me over the past few years, mainly the last decade or so. And I figured, what the heck, I might as well give it a shot now, right? Um, so yeah, we're gonna see where this thing goes. Maybe only a few people watch it. Maybe it takes off and becomes something big. That'd be amazing. But honestly, the main goal for me here is just to have fun. Talking about MMA is something that I love to do. And to be completely honest, this channel gives me an outlet to do that. So whether 10 people watch or 10,000, whatever the number may be, the main goal is just to meet some cool people that like MMA. Hopefully this reaches a few people. Hopefully you guys like it. And I'm really excited to see what this journey holds. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Trey. I live in Georgia, not the country, not like we're not with Marab and Ilya and all them, just the state of Georgia in the United States. I live near Atlanta. Lived here all my life, and I kind of stumbled across the UFC by accident. Um, when I was about 15 years old, I was looking for a new video game to play, and I guess I should fast forward a little bit further. Back when I was like 9 or 10 years old, I had a friend, and when I would go over to his house, we would play the WWE game on the Wii. And I really enjoyed it. It was really cool, smashing people over the head with ladders and stuff like that in the game and all the stuff you could do in wrestling. It was a pretty fun game to play. Um, and when I was 15, I wanted a new video game. Or maybe I was 14. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Um, I just wanted a new video game to play. I've always been a big sports gamer, Madden, 2K, MLB The Show, stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I wonder if I could find that wrestling game, right? So I look it up. I look up wrestling video game. I didn't look up WWE game. I looked up wrestling video game. And one of the things that popped up was EA UFC. And I'm like, what is this? It looks pretty cool. It looks kind of like boxing. So I start looking at the game. I realize it's not boxing. It's fighting. It's everything. You can kick, you can punch, you can elbow, you can wrestle, you can choke. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. I want to get this game. I want to see what this is. So I buy the game. Well, my mom technically buys the game. I was too young. Anyway, get the game. And of course, the first guys I see are on the cover. It's John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson. Those are the first two I start playing with. Slowly, I start branching out toward the rest of the light heavyweight division. And at the time, I didn't know anything about these fighters. I only knew who was good based off their overall in the game. Like John Jones was, I think, like a 97, and Gustafsson was like a 94, 95, something like that. The higher overalls I knew were the good fighters. I didn't know any of these low overall. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know a single fighter at the time. This is 2014, 2015, somewhere around that range. Knew nothing about the sport, completely blank. I discovered guys like Chuck Liddell, Rashad Evans, Lyoto Machida, Wanderlei Silva. Anderson Silva was technically listed at the light heavyweight division. Of course, he fought there a few times. So I start branching out to some of these other fighters. I'm like, hey, these guys are cool. These guys are good. Start branching out to some of the lower weight classes, heavyweight especially, venturing over to middleweight, welterweight, eventually all the way down to bantamweight, flyweight, the women's divisions. I took such an interest in the sport. And around this time, I brought a friend over, and it's pretty funny actually. He was like, we're going through the roster, and he goes, "Hey, this guy's supposed to be pretty good, I think." And it was Conor McGregor. Just kind of funny looking back to see what Conor turned into. But around the time I got into the sport, I was aware of who the big stars were, but I wasn't really watching anything. I wasn't really watching the cards. I wasn't really paying attention to the news or the fight bookings or the results even. I was the first one I remember being aware of was when Ronda Rousey lost for the first time. I knew who Ronda was. I knew she was a big deal. I had no clue who Holly Holm was. And Conor as well, when he lost to Nate Diaz, I remember that. And again, I knew who Conor was. I did not know who Nate Diaz was, but I knew Conor and Ronda were big deals, and I knew them losing was a big deal. So just kind of goes to show where I can. I was very casual when I first got into the sport. I'm not even going to lie. But eventually, over time, my interest grew and I really wanted to start watching it. And so between UFC 196 and UFC 200, because McGregor lost at 196 to Nate Diaz for the first time, was when I really started to get into it a little bit more. I started learning more of the ranked contenders, and I started becoming more aware of who these people were. And the drama of UFC 200 Fight Week was just crazy to follow along with. It was supposed to be Conor and Nate before Fight Week, and Conor no-showed a press conference. The fight got delayed. Ended up being John Jones and Daniel Cormier. John Jones tested positive during Fight Week. Just all of the craziness. Brock Lesnar coming back. Amanda Nunes winning her first title. It was just a crazy week. Anderson Silva filled in for John Jones against DC, which was it's really crazy to look back on and think that that fight even happened, that he fought Daniel Cormier that night, but almost beat him too. Got him with a liver kick in the last round, but regardless. So UFC 201 rolls around and it's in Atlanta. Like I said, I live in Georgia. I'm about 45 minutes away from Atlanta. And I told my dad, I'm like, I want to go. This is awesome. I want to go to this. Well, the problem was I had a baseball tournament in Florida that same weekend. I played baseball for 13 years. And my dad said, well, here's the deal, son. You can either go to your tournament and play with your team, or you can go to the UFC fight, which of course I had to pick the baseball tournament. There was no way I was not going to go play. Um, but my dad and I decided that we would try to buy the fight. It was Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley for the welterweight title. Rose Namajunas was on that card. I don't think it was the co-main. It may have been the feature, but she fought Karolina Kowalkiewicz that night. Obviously, looking back, it's crazy to see where Rose has gone to, but again, regardless. My dad and I tried to buy the fight. We couldn't figure it out for some reason. I don't know exactly what we did wrong, but we just couldn't get it. And Robbie Lawler ends up getting knocked out by Tyron Woodley in the first round. Crazy result. And I was bummed that I missed it. So I told my dad, I'm like, okay, McGregor Diaz 2 is the next event, UFC 202. We got to get this one. We got to make sure we can get this to work. So we end up buying UFC 202, finally. Now, the funny part was I actually wasn't even home that night. My dad bought it, watched it, and I ended up watching it the next day. He just didn't tell me the result. I stayed offline, so I didn't know who won. And it was awesome. And I'm pretty sure that was the night that Anthony Johnson knocked out Glover Teixeira as well and sent Glover's tooth flying. I mean, it obviously didn't go into the stands, but it just went, you could see Glover's tooth come out. Crazy knockout. It was in the first like 15, 20 seconds. And then, of course, Conor and Nate 2 was an instant classic, which Conor got his revenge over Nate. And it was off to the races from there. We bought UFC 203, 204, 205, 206, and it was off to the races. I have not missed a pay-per-view since then. And I try not to miss any fights at all. And by the way, if you hear growling, I've got my microphone set to where it's very aggressive and canceling outside noise because I have two young dogs. Nugget, Goose, come here. Goose. Well, they're playing. They might not listen to me. But I do have two young dogs, and they like to play and wrestle at the most inopportune times. So if you hear that, I am very sorry. Here comes one of them. Come here, buddy. So this is Goose. To anybody wondering, Nugget is over here. They're both golden retrievers. Um, anyway, you'll see plenty of them, I'm sure, throughout my live streams and stuff. I am going to be doing live streams throughout the actual fight nights. Get down, please. Thank you. But that's Goose. This also, Dr. Pepper is one of my great obsessions. You guys are going to see plenty of this throughout my live streams as well. So anyway, but yeah, that's how I got into the UFC, and I just started watching it from there. The first event I actually got to go to was UFC Nashville in 2019. It was Stephen Thompson and Anthony Pettis in the main event. Um, it was really cool. My dad and I got to Nashville the day before, and they were doing a weigh-in show outside the arena for Fox. And Anthony Pettis and Wonder Boy both actually came outside to the panel and came and took some pictures with the fans. Got to have a conversation with Wonder Boy. And by the way, all the stuff about him being the nicest guy in the game is beyond true. He was such a cool human being to talk to. He took the time out of his day to sit there and have a 5-minute conversation with me. And that meant so much to me at the time. Anthony Pettis came out, took pictures too. And of course, these guys are just coming off of weigh-ins, by the way. So they're drained, they just cut weight, and they still had the decency to come out and interact with the fans. That means so much to me, especially as much as I've learned about weight cutting over the years and how brutal it can be for these fighters. That meant so much to me. And Stephen Thompson just couldn't have been a cooler guy. Met John Vellante at the same time. He was there, of course, with Wonder Boy. He was just kind of mingling around the crowd, but I recognized him, of course, and got to take a picture with him as well. He was a super cool, super nice guy as well. Um, and then I also got to go to UFC 236, which for the hardcores, this event's going to ring a bell. That was the night of Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum, which, of course, since then that fight has been inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. And right after it, another fight that's going to be inducted someday, which is Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier 2, which was for the interim lightweight championship. Poirier ended up winning that. I was gutted at the time because Max Holloway was my favorite fighter, still is. Um, After Max, I'm probably not going to have a favorite fighter anymore, to be honest. I'm just too big of a fan of the sport, and I know how difficult it is for these guys to stay on top for so long. And honestly, when you've been a fan of the sport for so long, it's hard to just pick one guy. I mean, you learn to love them all. But at the time, I was a little bit more casual. Max was my guy. The first fight I ever saw from Max was when he won the interim title against Anthony Pettis. Um, and I was also attending UFC 278 in Salt Lake City. I actually got she was my girlfriend at the time, Sadie. You'll see her at some point, I'm sure, but she is actually my wife now. We've been married for about a year and a half. Love of my life and the best thing that's ever happened to me. But I somehow talked her into going to a UFC fight. It's never, well, most likely never going to happen again. But God bless her, she went. Meant the world to me that she went, and that was the night that Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman with less than a minute to go. One of the craziest things I've ever seen, and I can say I saw it in person. Paulo Costa, Luke Rockhold was that night. That was Luke's final fight. Jose Aldo, Marab Dvalishvili was that night. Of course, I got to say I've seen Marab in person, and at the time that was Jose Aldo's retirement. He would end up coming back later, but I saw his first retirement, so you know. But yeah, seeing Luke Rockhold's retirement was really cool. So I've only been to 3 events so far. I would love to go to another one, but it just hasn't materialized yet. I mean, I'd love to go to all of them if I could, but I know that's probably not feasible. But at least I can watch it from the comfort of my own home. And if I'm watching from home, it means I can watch it with you guys. So, like I said, I am going to be doing some live streams. Well, not some. I'm going to be live streaming during every single fight night this year. At least that's the goal. Barring something crazy, I will be live streaming during every fight. So it's going to take a miracle for me not be live streaming during a fight. So just so you guys know, my goal is to live stream every single event this year, starting with UFC 324 on January 24th. I will be with you guys for that. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much just a short backstory of how I got into the UFC. Something I'm really hoping that I can reach with this channel as well is some of the newer fans, because with the UFC moving to Paramount, there's going to be a big group of you guys watching the UFC for the first time. You know, a lot of people have Paramount Plus, and with the UFC being behind a pay-per-view wall for so long, it's been inaccessible to fans for so long. No one wants to pay $80 for it. And even as a hardcore fan, I mean, I struggle to do it sometimes, and I know a lot of people just, you know, went on streaming sites and pirated the events. I just didn't like it. The quality wasn't as good. And yeah, I know it's $80. I know I could have gotten it for free, but sue me, right? Um, which ironically, if I streamed it knowing my luck, somebody probably would have. But anyway, but now it's just going to be on Paramount Plus, just a nice little monthly subscription. I think it's like $13 a month. I haven't even looked at it yet, to be completely honest with you. Beats the living hell out of $80 a month plus the ESPN Plus fee. So I don't even care what it is, to be completely honest with you. All I know is it's less than $20 a month now, instead of like 95 with ESPN Plus and the pay-per-view to watch a pay-per-view. So I'm very happy about that. And I think the UFC is going to be bringing in a lot of new fans in 2026 because of that haven't watched the UFC before. I mean, you look at the success of some of the boxing matches on Netflix, you know, the 2 Jake Paul fights against Mike Tyson and Anthony Joshua, and of course, the success of Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford. I was kind of hoping the UFC would go to Netflix just because of that. And honestly, with Dana White co-promoting Crawford and Canelo, I thought the UFC would be going to Netflix. I kind of thought that was going to be a precursor. Ended up going to Paramount, but like I said, that is totally fine with me. Paramount has been in the MMA business before as well. They were partnered with Bellator back in the day for a little while. Or maybe it was Strikeforce. Maybe I'm thinking of Strikeforce, one of the Scott Coker organizations. But either way, they've been in MMA before. I think I'm thinking of Strikeforce because CBS was broadcasting Strikeforce as well. The Nashville Brawl was on CBS, but regardless, so I'm really excited just to see the influx of new fans come in. I think it's going to be so good for the sport. And with 2026 coming up, there's so many big storylines coming into this year, so many amazing fights that are going to take place this year, so many big names that the fans are going to fall in love with. When for the hardcores, you're going to understand this, but when these casual fans and newer fans start seeing guys like Alex Pereira compete, Islam Makhachev, Ilya Topuria whenever he comes back, even the first event, Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje is going to be insane. Amanda Nunes coming back against Kayla Harrison, that's going to be ridiculous. They're going to get to be introduced to Sean O'Malley going up against Song Yadong. I mean, oh, I'm so excited for this year. I cannot wait to see some of these newer fans come in. And I can't wait to hear some of you guys' stories as well. Like drop a comment. Let me know how you got into the sport. I'm so curious to learn about how you guys fell in love with MMA the way I did. E- Everybody got into it in a different way, and I'm one of those that came in during the era of McGregor and Rousey, but it was not because of McGregor and Rousey. I just completely found the UFC by happenstance. And I've noticed that a lot of fans, when they get into the sport, they kind of trickle out as time goes on. And I completely understand it because, like, let's just say, like me, you came in during the McGregor Rousey era. You see guys like Connor and Ronda, or women like Ronda and Amanda and Joanna Jędrzejczyk was on top around that time. John Jones, I mean, Daniel Cormier. Once those people start to go away, it does get a little more difficult to stay invested. And I understand that because the people that you're used to lose, and humans don't like change. That's just something within our nature. We struggle with change. So when the guys that we know start losing and the new up and coming guys start coming in, you just don't think they're as good. But when you watch the sport for long enough and you go between those eras, you realize that there are so many good fighters. Just because you don't know them yet and just because they don't have the name value doesn't mean they suck, right? You've got the modern stars. Like, just a couple years ago, they were saying there's a big star problem in the UFC. They don't have a lot of these guys, but Alexander Volkanovski was coming up. Alex Pereira wasn't established yet. Islam Makhachev wasn't a champion yet. Ilya Topuria wasn't a champion yet. You guys get the point. You have to build these stars, and it takes time. Just because you don't know their name yet does not mean you won't know their name later. And that's something that I really want to bring to this channel as well. I really want to give a spotlight to a lot of these fighters because there's so many amazing fighters on the roster that fans just aren't even aware of. Whether they just haven't made it in the mainstream. Maybe their personality isn't big enough to be a mainstream star for whatever reason. The personality really does sell a fight a lot. And if you're not one of those big time stars and big time personalities, you may not get the push from the UFC that a lot of fighters like McGregor get, or Topuria, or Habib back in the day, or Anderson Silva, John Jones. You get the point. And so I really want to bring a spotlight to a lot of these fighters. And that's why the first big thing I want to do on this channel is going to be my first little mini series, which is called Meet the Fighters. I'm going to start uploading that after I upload this debut video. I just wanted to get my face and my name out there first, get my story out there first, give you guys a little bit of an introduction as to who I am, how I fell in love with the sport, why I'm here, why I want to do this. But Meet the Fighters is going to be my first little mini series, and I'm going to be just giving a brief summary of every single fighter in the top 15 of each division. We'll go division by division in each episode, smallest to largest. So the strawweights are going to be first, working all the way up to the heavyweight division. I've already started recording the strawweight episode, but like I said, I just wanted to upload it after I uploaded this, so it won't be up for a couple days. But that's going to be my first mini series for the newbies. It'll be a great introduction to the fighters. It'll really give you a little bit of an overview of each division, who's good, who's not, what names to look out for. And for a lot of the hardcores, something that I feel like the UFC's lacked a lot lately is that promotion of the lesser known fighters. They used to do such a great job with promoting, and I feel like that's really lacked lately. And I feel like that's a big contributor as to why it doesn't feel like we have the star power that we used to in the sport. And so something that I hope that this does is really bring a lot of hype and a spotlight to some of these fighters, because I was going through the strawweight division, and even someone that watches every event like me, I didn't really have strawweight on my radar going into 2026, but going through the division on Meet the Fighters and looking at some of the girls in the top 15, that division is really good. And it's got some really exciting fighters outside the top 5 that I'm really excited to see compete in 2026 now. A lot of them don't have fights booked, but I'm like, can we please get this division moving? Because we've got some really interesting fighters in this division. And so I really hope that Meet the Fighters just gives you guys a nice little overview of who is in each division, what fighters are good. Just give you guys familiarize you guys with some of the names, and something else just to make you guys aware. Even with sorry, Goose wants to say hi, but even with Meet the Fighters, I'm not really tech savvy when it comes to this editing stuff. It's not going to be the fanciest video you've ever seen. Please get down. You guys are going to get used to him. Um, but yeah, it's not going to be this big, fancy, super elaborate video. It's going to be short, sweet, and to the point, but it at least gives you guys an idea of who is in each division and really gives you guys a chance to get to know each fighter in their own little bubble. And I just really hope that I can reach a couple people that'll fall in love with the sport the same way I did. Each of these fighters have such an interesting story when you start to get to know them, and that's something that I really love about this sport too, is it's a lot more intimate than a lot of these other sports. You really get to know a lot of these fighters as people, and it really helps you cheer for them even more and really gets you invested in the sport even more. And that's something that I really want to bring to you guys as well. So super excited for this journey. I am so excited to have you guys along for the ride with me. Can't wait to see where this goes, and I will talk to you guys next time. Again, I've got a live stream coming up January 24th for UFC 324. That will be on Twitch, and I will make sure to link my Twitch on my YouTube. If you're watching this, I've also got an Instagram. I will link that in the YouTube video as well. I'll link all my socials for you guys. Um, but yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys along for the ride with me. And let's make 2026 one of the best years the UFC's ever had. And I will see you guys next time.